In a previous video, I had some friends of mine stop by to discuss whether they thought of certain wrestlers as being either a WWF guy or a WCW guy. But for this video, I figured it's time to expand upon this idea, so I decided to have them back with a whole new list of wrestlers. Because today, Dave wants to know, what company do you think of for these wrestlers?
J-E-F-F, J-A-R-R-E-T-T, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. WWF.
The Double J. Even though people love that catchphrase, I don't remember that character being that great to me.
Jeff Jarrett. That was WCW.
Okay.
Yeah, for me. With his weird shirt. Of all, it was just slash, just something I never understood.
I don't think anyone understood. He looked like a car wash.
I think of him as a WCW guy.
Okay.
I really do. I think
tough.
he probably spent equal time in both.
Jeff Jarrett.
WCW. That's where his first real top guy run was. I could also say USWA. I love the Ain't I Great stuff, Alone with My Baby Tonight, love that stuff, but a lot of what Jeff Jarrett's body of work can be considered of is WCW.
WCW, where he was a champion there, you know.
I'm thinking like 95, 96.
Yeah.
Mainly 95 when he had his feud with Razor for the Intercontinental Championship. That's like mainly what I think when I think of Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett.
Not the biggest fan, but I would say TNA. TNA would be the one because, I mean...
There's just so many to choose from. That's why I put him on this list, because it's like, what company you like?
He was omnipresent in the main event picture the entire time, whereas in WWE, you know, he was kind of an upper mid-carder. In WCW, he was a main eventer, but sort of at the tail end of WCW, so people were kind of like, does he really belong here? But in TNA, you know, he's a guy who made guys like AJ Styles, made a lot of young stars there. His best run, I would say, in a vacuum with TNA.
But then again, the other thing is I would, you know, TNA.
Steve actually said TNA.
TNA.
That's kind of obvious, but I was just thinking of like
Right.
2002, but
right.
TNA would probably be the obvious answer. I'm just stupid.
It's whatever comes to mind
Yeah.
first.
Wow, I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah, so what do you think about Steve's answer?
As a TNA guy? I mean, he's a TNA guy, for sure. Steve's right. Jeff Jarrett's a TNA guy.
You said Steve was right?
Unfortunately. I wish it wasn't true, but you know, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Now that I'm thinking about it, when I hear Jeff Jarrett, the Double J, that's what I think is WWF. But when I hear just Jeff Jarrett, I guess TNA, and I hear the siren that's with his that song he had.
You gotta pick one.
That WWF.
I say Global Force.
What? Who? Isn't that a pyramid scheme?
AJ Styles.
AJ Styles. You know, I think of him as a New Japan guy, but he hadn't spent that much time there.
No, but that's what comes to mind. That's what comes to mind.
New Japan or TNA.
AJ Styles.
AJ Styles, TNA. I know other people might be like New Japan or Ring of Honor, but like literally the majority of his career was spent in TNA, and that's where he made his name.
AJ Styles.
Impact.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make the argument for WWE now because he's been a top guy since he got there.
Yeah.
But Impact is kind of like where he made his bones.
In my opinion, he was the one homegrown talent of that whole entire company that made them different. Like, if I ever did watch TNA when I was like in middle school and high school, or my dad when I introduced it to him, the only reason why we watched TNA was to see AJ Styles wrestle. So TNA.
I'm glad that nobody who's decided to be a smartass and say WCW, because I was expecting
for that one thing he did on Thunder.
AJ Styles.
AJ Styles will always be a TNA guy for me, but I think if he continues on with, say, somehow he wrestles another 10 years, I can see how he could become a WWE guy.
That won't happen.
It won't, but TNA for sure.
Now, this is a tricky one because I'm looking for a specific answer, but Ric Flair.
Ric Flair is WCW. Yeah, WCW, NWA.
Which one?
Which one?
That's why it's tricky. Ric Flair. Ric Flair.
WCW.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But you see where I'm going with that one, right?
For me, WCW, because I was born in '82. I started watching like '89. The NWA was there, but the company was WCW.
Gotcha.
So to me, Ric Flair is synonymous as a WCW guy. I mean, he was the last wrestler there when they closed the doors. Him and Sting, WCW.
Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, wow. When I think Ric Flair, I think NWA.
That was it.
Is what I think. When I think of okay, which version of Ric Flair comes to mind instantly, it's the NWA.
Younger fans are going to be like, it's WWE or WCW. No, I'm really asking NWA or WCW.
That's really tough.
Yeah, I know.
Because for me, my favorite incarnation of Ric Flair is WWF, obviously, like 1991 to 1993, that 92, with a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
This is the greatest moment of my life.
That is one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time.
I would say NWA. Although if someone said WCW, you really couldn't, because during that transfer point, it was pretty
That's
much
why
the
that
same
one's
thing.
a sneaky one, because that's what I'm really asking. Ric Flair.
The NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions.
I don't think anyone's going to say WWF. That's not what I'm looking for.
So I'm going to say WWF, even though clearly that is not the right answer.
It's your favorite answer?
It should be NWA or whatever, Jim Crockett or WCW.
Even though one of my favorite moments in wrestling history, Royal Rumble 92.
That's my favorite.
It might be my favorite match of all time.
That's
can
fair
watch
enough.
it anytime.
I've watched it a million times. Yeah. It's your favorite answer, even though you know it's the wrong answer.
Yes, and I'll hang my hat there.
Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, WCW, Daddy. That's what I think.
All right.
I mean, most people would say NWA, but it's that period because he was a color guy on WCW, and when you wind up an announcer in that capacity and seeing national television every week, it's an easy way to solidify it, for me at least.
Dusty Rhodes.
NWA, I guess. The thing is the NWA had multiple.
Yeah.
So
that's why it's tricky. What you thought I'd make it easy for you?
I'm just gonna say NWA.
Okay, fair enough.
Honestly,
Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream.
I think NWA. I mean, I knew him as a WCW guy. I'm certainly not going to call him a WWF guy.
Dusty Rhodes.
Oh wow. I guess WWF.
But ironically, that's how I probably until I was an adult and the internet was created, I never saw Dusty Rhodes wrestle. I only saw him wrestle in the WWF back in the day. But knowing what I know now, I equate him with NWA.
I would rent like older videos from Blockbuster from the 80s.
All right.
Where
so you like the polka dots?
Where
That's what got you.
I just loved him, but that's what I remember him from is like, I know you're from the past. Like you weren't in the current one that I was watching as a kid.
Dusty Rhodes.
Ooh. Jim Crockett Promotions or ECW.
Okay, yeah, that's surprising.
That
But you
Corino
gotta pick
angle,
one.
man.
You gotta pick
Jim
one.
Crockett Promotions, but not enough people talk about how amazing that feud with Steve Corino was.
They really don't. That is true.
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Matt said ECW, which I was like, holy. He goes, run his
he's gonna give you the most obscure answers. If you were like, oh, what's your favorite song by so and so, you would pick the deepest cut off of their lesser known album from a year that no one liked them. That's what Matt's answers are for everything.
So if I asked him his favorite Nirvana song, he's picking something from Bleach.
He's picking something from that album, like a deep cut that never got any radio play.
Gotcha.
That's the kind of answers he gives.
Kurt Angle.
WWE.
Yeah.
I didn't watch him as a kid.
Kurt Angle.
Oh, WWE.
Okay.
Like, even though he had that TNA run, you still just recognize that song with him. You can't remember the trademark song he used in TNA.
Well, yeah. What TNA songs does anybody remember? Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle, WWF.
Okay.
WWF.
Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle. See, this is also an interesting one because
It's really close.
spent the majority of his career in TNA.
Not anymore. It's actually just about even right now.
Really?
With his comeback?
With his comeback?
It's about even out. He has a slight edge on WWE. His return.
His return to put him over?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, so yeah, it's roughly the
It's
same.
about the same, but the edge slightly goes to
Absolutely
WWE.
WWE.
I think it's WWE. I mean, I couldn't name a lot of. That TNA run was rough. He really was trying. He was trying his best. A lot of people tried. TNA tried, everybody. They really did try, and I believe that in all honesty. But anything I remember from Kurt Angle's career, minus him facing Samoa Joe, and he had some great matches in TNA, but I would have to say he's a WWE guy to me.
That's where I grew to respect him and love him as a performer.
Right.
So not to mention that 2000, 2001, like the match with Shane McMahon at King of the Ring 2001, like come on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he had iconic performances that really made him in WWE, and that's where he became a made guy.
Yeah.
And then he his name later on. Grant, he became a made guy in the Olympics, but I mean a made man as a professional wrestler. He put the work in WWE and was able to go anywhere else and be Kurt Angle. So.
Interesting. He became a made man in WWE, but he joined the Mafia in TNA. We're not talking. Okay.
The main event Mafia.
Right. Yeah. Oh, no, joke doesn't work. Okay. Move on.
I think his prime in ring was in TNA, but I think his creative prime, the things that he was doing, the amount of tools that he was able to show in WWF was the way to go.
Gotcha.
For me.
Okay.
But his matches in TNA was probably his athletic prime, in my opinion.
Rey Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio, that one's probably the toughest one.
Rey Mysterio.
I'm gonna say WCW.
Okay. That was a tough one for you, huh?
WCW,
Yeah?
because that's just where I was introduced to him.
I'm gonna say WCW because, if you would have said Rey Mysterio Jr., then I would immediately was like WCW.
All right, let's see if the trend continues. Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, WCW.
Because that's like where he really grew to become the international star on a television show in America.
That's just where I was introduced to him. The lawn dart, just the whole series of matches with Psychosis. I didn't watch ECW until the first ECW pay-per-view. I didn't watch anything up until Barely Legal because my mom was like, "Oh, there's wrestling on tonight," and that's kind of how that started.
People outside of Mexico and AAA or wherever he was wrestling before, he was a name, but he really became a household name there for the first time, and obviously blew up even bigger when he was in WWE. But I just remember him being so small, didn't have a ton of muscle on him when he was in WCW. He was
because he was still,
he was like a kid.
He was still in puberty.
He was 23. But I just remember him having incredible matches with Billy Kidman and Juventud Guerrera and Eddie and all that. So I liked watching those and stuff.
Initially, I think WCW, but then I picture him in the Filthy Animals with the mask off, and I don't want to picture it anymore.
Who is that?
Exactly.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, no. So I'm going to say WWF.
And finally, your boy, Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho. Whew, that's tough.
Chris Jericho.
Oh man, that's a great one.
And last, Chris Jericho.
God, that is a tough one.
And finally, Chris Jericho.
WCW.
WCW?
Yeah.
WWE.
The first thing I'd think of is obviously WWF because of when he started doing the break the walls down thing. I used to take my dad's shirts. He was a wedding singer, so I'd take these flashy looking long sleeve shirts and I'd put them on and pretend to be Jericho.
I gotta go WWE for Jericho.
Jericho.
For all you Jerichoholics out there.
Which is a WCW thing, but anyway.
Yeah, you're right. But it's still WWE.
The way he came in, with me, it's your biggest impact.
Gotcha.
And
no pun intended.
Yes. You can obviously make the argument for AEW, but you're trying to balance a 20-year run in the WWE for the most part in comparison to his litany of other runs.
The second thing I would say is WCW, Lionheart, when he was with Ralphus. And I love that's his theme song there for some reason. But WWF for sure, but then it's a very close WCW because of when he would wear his hair half up, half down, like I do sometimes.
Right.
So Jericho's he's honestly he's one of my all-time favorites. I wanna meet him eventually. I feel like we click.
WWE slightly, just over WCW.
Very slightly, apparently.
Because, it's tough because first ever undisputed champion, one of the most creative runs in the history of the business in 2009, constantly reinventing himself. So, I would say definitely WWE. Although his WCW run was very enjoyable, he never reached the height that a lot of people thought. Plus, coming into the WWE, that's probably one of the greatest debuts in the history of the business.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, yeah.
I want to give a big thank you to everyone for appearing in this episode, and I also want to thank you for watching it. And if you could please do me a favor and give this video a big thumbs up, as well as making sure that your notifications are working. That way you don't miss out on any of the content as soon as it goes live. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.